It's Thursday, March 26, 2015. I'm Jimmy Principe.
And I'm Trey Comstock, putting in final orders because this is Tech's Last Call, episode 113. Your last call for Tech News of the Week. Tonight, Jimmy buys a phone, and I buy a book to read inside Facebook. And we start tonight with news I only slightly care about.
No, you don't care about it at all. Don't lie.
It's part of this I care about. You might be able to figure out which part. So this week, Facebook wasn't just where you get your news, it was news itself. It held its annual F8 Developers Conference, and there was definitely some news that came out of there. However, the biggest story came from the New York Times. On Monday, they broke that Facebook is in talks with content creators, oddly enough including the New York Times, also Nat Geo, The Guardian, and BuzzFeed, to host their content inside Facebook. Right now, news feeds are filled with outside articles that take, on average, around 8 seconds to load. Hosting these inside Facebook would drastically speed up this process, giving these sites a competitive advantage and more control to Facebook. Sounds like a win-win. Except Facebook, not the content creators, would be in charge of the advertising, with some sort of yet-to-be-detailed revenue-sharing model. Also, Facebook, not the content creators, will have control over the super valuable user data. The New York Times article heavily hinted that at least the New York Times and BuzzFeed are heavily inclined towards moving forward with this, while The Guardian certainly seems more hesitant. Back inside F8, several Facebook products are getting key revisions. Messenger now functions as an app platform. This isn't actually as crazy as it sounds. This means that your Facebook Messenger will link with other messenger-enabled apps. And there's like a slew of them that will let you create unique or creative or interactive messenger content and more easily load this back into Facebook Messenger to be sent. Keep in mind that Facebook Messenger has like a U.S. presence or a total presence of 600 million users, heavily weighted towards the United States, unlike any other messenger app.
It's the WhatsApp of the United States.
Which is interesting because WhatsApp is the WhatsApp of Brazil, and everyone's using it, but that's the next show. So I actually think this is interesting, that basically you'll be able to craft cool content in these apps and more easily load it into the Messenger app rather than having to save it to your camera roll and then import it. Like, it just cleans up that process.
Oh, so I can use Instagram, and I can take that Instagram and I can put it in my Messenger app and I can send it that way?
Yeah, I think so. I think Instagram,
that's my private message.
Right. You're very
why would Instagram integrate? I don't understand, Trey.
Well, yeah, I get it. It's not just Instagram.
But that's just an example.
There's a list of 30 apps that will work with this, most of which were not even owned by Facebook. It was remarkable. It was almost like it was a real platform. Facebook, who owns Oculus, now supports spherical video. Great. That was a no-brainer. Also, Instagram, owned by Facebook, got its own collage app where you can make these photo collages. Because they realized that
apps that do that.
They realized that 20% of their users were making collages, and often that the apps for making collages were kind of crap. So they made their own collages app called Layouts. And now you can embed Facebook videos around the web like you've been able to do at every other site for almost a decade. Yep.
2006 called.
Yeah, you can now embed things. It's almost like it's the internet. So does any of this news actually sound meaningful for how people use Facebook?
So I think that the Messenger stuff that you picked up on, as far as the apps that are all going to integrate with it, that will actually impact how people use Facebook. But I think that other than that, the back end stuff of New York Times, BuzzFeed, these services that so many people link out to, if they're embedded within Facebook, I think that you'll see a lot more stickiness within Facebook.
Well, it's
In a
also
sense that that content will be hosted, so anything that's in it will link still within Facebook.
and will load. I mean, if the big
It'll
thing
load a lot
that the
faster.
New York Times article about the New York Times stressed was that it would load faster. In this mobile world, where mobile first, cloud first world, where milliseconds matter,
Turns out he was onto something.
yeah, it having this added speed makes a difference. Now, I think they're right to be worried about the business model. I fully believe that Facebook will revenue share. This isn't just going to be like screw you, right? That and they'll be allowed. The New York Times articles talk that all of this is rumors and non-disclosure agreements and sources close to the matter. Blah 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 blah. I mean, since New York Times are involved in this negotiation, we can call this at best a strategic leak. Right,
it's probably a strategic
right,
leak.
because I mean, how is like New York Times sources from within the New York Times, all who signed non-disclosure agreements, disclosing this? And come on, this is a planned leak to leak as part of F8, but it wasn't. The deal's just not finalized. Anyways, so they'll be allowed to run one custom ad embedded in the Facebook-hosted version of the article. And that's great. They won't be able to do like the whole like take over the background of the page thing, which I personally hate. And I think a lot of web users...
It's becoming much and much more common.
Right, because it's hard to make money on the internet. I get it. The New York Times, and this is also in their own article, functions on a paywall, though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So, and I only know this because I was looking at a New York Times story getting ready for this show.
About the New York Times.
I didn't actually look at that one. I looked at the...
all the news that's fit to print, especially when it's about us.
Yep. But I saw at the bottom it said, "You're on your last free view." I went, uh-oh, for the month. Now, granted, it is the 26th, so I'm not going to
do
use...
another show this month.
Yeah, I'm not going to use it again. But... mainly because of Molly Wood being at the New York Times, I've been using them a lot more in the last couple of months. And I keep getting close to that 10 page views a month where then you have to pay. And although I think that I like their model much better than the Wall Street Journal, which the results of the Wall Street Journal is that people link out to it and then they just literally just recopy everything that's in the Wall Street Journal article into a separate article so people can read it. So the New York Times still have people going to their sites, clicking on their ads. But how can you enforce that 10 view paywall when it's within Facebook?
Easier, actually.
Well, I guess you have identity tracking that's not cookie based.
It's actually we don't know if they're going to continue that model inside Facebook, but assuming they do, that gets a lot easier. And actually, it may make that whole thing more enforceable because you're pretty much always logged in for Facebook. And so with that partnership with Facebook, they can check it against it and really know how many articles you're using.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good
or they
point.
won't do, the talk around it was talking like they wouldn't do it inside Facebook. That it would basically, but I think for the BuzzFeed, it just fits their model of we don't really care where you look at our stuff. And because now BuzzFeed can say that because some of their content is advertising, right? BuzzFeed, the pioneer, pioneer of native advertising. Sometimes the stories that are shared from BuzzFeed are actually ads. Downey, your 10 softest moments or whatever. I gave up, but my New Year's resolution was I gave up BuzzFeed. It's been good. That's I think I just gave up listicles in general. Because,
No, the only listicle I can't give up is Mental Floss with John Green. I can't.
Nah, I gave him up. Instead, I have leaned heavily into PhD comics. So it's not... Yeah, I found...
You substituted one drug for another.
I need something to waste time when I'm supposed to be working on my thesis. This is important. This is a key part of the thesis-making process, is procrastination.
I mean, so if we look at everything else that was kind of announced, you look at the Instagram collage app. I will probably download it and try it out.
It looks cool. The
Um,
stuff
I
their
like
demo
the
stuff looks cool.
idea. I like the idea of that kind of an app. I don't know how much I would use it.
I know
Um,
TechCrunch thought this one worked well in comparison to its competitors, which
and
is one
most
of
of
the
those
reasons.
are just total crap.
Right,
So
and I think
I'm
it's
glad
not
that,
just a Me Too thing. They really thought about some meaningful UI shifts.
yeah. And I mean, but that's what you have to do when you're doing kind of a photo app. Even when people are already doing something, you have to do it better
Or you
or
buy it
provide.
and cancel it out because you're called Twitter. Twitter doesn't make better apps. They just make it so the good apps don't work.
Right. Meerkat specifically.
Meerkat.
Uh,
Actually, I think their service may be better than Meerkat. Their service archives.
yeah. Their service does
Now,
archive. It was
most
released this week. We're not talking about that this week, though.
Periscope.
Because it's all that's all. Periscope was released this week, and now for
And
something.
now for something completely different. Oculus support.
Yeah. Okay, so Oculus support in Facebook is an obvious addition that we knew was coming. Just that's like YouTube recently added
Spherical
support
video,
for
too.
spherical video. It's just the thing that people are rolling out, that when you have a platform that's going to be devoted to VR, you need to have that. Provided
And,
that
it's
you
still
can be able to upload that.
it raises the question of is VR. I'm still not sold that VR is going to make it because
Not in that way. I don't think it's going to make it in that way.
I think we've proven that people don't want to wear
A thing.
dumb glasses at home or in public. And this is the problem. And I like AR better than I like VR.
Right. So what Microsoft showed off with
HoloLens.
HoloLens, I'm far more interested in.
But you still look like RoboCop. I mean, you can't.
You do still look like RoboCop. However, as I could see someone actually wearing that sitting at a desk,
Right.
so that you can, instead of having screens, you're sitting at a desk and you're manipulating whatever, or
But
you're using your keyboard or whatever it is. However, you're interacting with the stuff.
The HoloLens for me was coolest for so you're working on a 3D object. You're working on designing a 3D object, and you're manipulating it in AutoCAD on a screen with a mouse, which is much more precise than wiggling your fingers in there.
Yeah, no, you don't do this.
Right.
You'll
But
lose
your
your damn mind.
preview is there sitting on the desk for you. And you can pick up and hold and look at your preview. I think that's really great.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the examples that they showed off where
The motorcycle demo.
yeah, the motorcycle, that's right.
It was the
and you
motorcycle.
walk over and you're like, "Oh, I read the tank."
Well, so it was on the desk, and then the model that everyone was working off was hologrammed over in the corner. I really liked that idea for AR.
Well, and I think that idea is the way that it'll, like, in a professional setting, I can see, because I work on 3D objects every day.
Right.
So the way that I do it is I'm drafting in a two-dimensional space, and then when I need to look at something, I flip to a three-dimensional space and I manipulate it exactly the way you would manipulate that model that they showed in HoloLens. So if I can have, in my case, a building that's sitting there as I'm drawing it here, this is doing its thing.
Yeah.
Then I'm not taking up screen real estate, and whenever I want you to look at it, my 2D plane stays here. I pick this up and I go, yeah, no, we're not going to do it that way. And then
And that becomes, to me, seems like a much more natural workflow for that kind of thing. For me, I think it would be great for telecommunications. So instead of having my Skype on a screen, my Skype just shows up on a wall.
right, I can just throw my Skype there.
Right, or throw my video, the video that I'm watching over, so say I'm working, doing something where I need a mouse and keyboard for very fine, because in the end, mouse and keyboard is just better for fine, detailed manipulation. Or a Wacom tablet, or some sort of tactile, you have a thing in your hand interface. This is the reason why we write with a pencil and not with our finger, right? Because
there's a reason why we teach children how to paint with a paintbrush instead of their fingers.
Right, because you can just get a finer level of detail by training your fine motor around a secondary object. You can't do the same thing with your finger. I mean, you can, but anyways.
Well, and this is way out in the weeds.
Because I'm not interested in... Because fundamentally, besides the hosting inside, which I think is just turns Facebook into the AOL of the '90s in a really search keyword Nick and all of that BS. I think that's interesting, and I want to see where that goes. The rest of this looks like incremental upgrades on a service I don't really use.
Yeah, but as someone that is more in the Facebook ecosystem than you are, these are meaningful upgrades.
Sure,
and
I don't think they're bad stuff.
And it is definitely incremental, but VR, I do not believe is the future. AR is the future because I can see a place in my life where I would deal with the inconvenience of wearing a thing on my head and across my face,
and it'll get
to
more
make
streamlined.
AR work, but not to make VR work.
Because immersive gaming experiences are great, but they're not realistic for most humans. Right? So I have a kid on the way. How can I video game and parent at the same time if I'm wearing a VR headset? I could conceivably be keeping half an eye on my kid while also playing Assassin's Creed, and probably not miss much, right? Because, that my 47-inch screen on the wall, I can, have attention to multiple things. If I'm literally encasing myself in a thing, there's very little opportunity as a parent where that's realistic.
So the only place that works, I think, is in a college dorm room.
Right, so you can watch all of the 3D live pornography and not realize that your roommates come back.
Yeah.
Yes, college dorm, high schooler, single person. Yeah, sure. But that's a really limited market. And also, I'm not sure you can really get past the throwing up. Something that does make me want to puke. Talk to me about the FCC.
Yes, so the opening salvo in the net neutrality litigation has been fired.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, so the first
Clone Wars have.
Yes. The first was by the U.S. Telecom Association, who represents many of the large internet service providers. And they filed a case in the U.S. Court of Appeals in the District of Columbia, saying that the FCC's use of Title II was, quote, arbitrary, capricious, and an abuse of discretion.
Yep.
End quote. So those sound like familiar words. And they were not even the only ones that did it. A regional ISP from Texas, Alamo Broadband, who I've never heard of.
You're about to be back to being in the running for biggest disappointment of the year.
Yeah, we just approved open carry. Also filed a similar case in federal court in New Orleans.
Jimmy, I thought it was the law that everyone had to open carry. I thought that was the law.
That is now the law.
That everyone has to open carry?
Probably.
God.
So anyway, so the catch to these lawsuits, these were filed earlier this week. Or came to light earlier this week. They were filed last week, actually. According to the FCC, the window for legal appeals is starting with when it appears in the Federal Register,
right, which
to 60 days out. And at the beginning of the week when this story was posted, it had not yet been posted in the Federal Register. So they basically said, huh? So I don't know whether or not it's now been posted to the Register, and these cases have actually become official. But now that they've kind of received these attacks, are they kind of exactly what we expected? Not as bad, worse?
I don't think these are the real ones. I
think that these are the prodding.
Yeah. One of the theories that I heard is these are test cases to see if the FCC will kind of tip their hand as to how they're going to defend. That they're trying to get a clues into what the real defense is going to be for when the real lawsuits start.
Which probably won't happen until,
Well, it won't happen until 60 days after they're published in the Federal Register, because I think they figured that
that's supposed to happen. That's supposed to happen this week sometime, or next week. So it'll be soon. I think the real lawsuit is most likely going to happen in May.
Sure.
I think it's when the real lawsuit will come.
Yeah, it'll start, and it'll be. My bet is Verizon. I think Comcast or Time Warner would be extremely foolish to sue the federal government.
Oh.
They really need the federal government right
now.
now.
Well, and AT&T is trying to get that deal with DirecTV.
Right.
So they don't want to sue the federal government either. So I think Verizon is in the position as they were a year ago, 2 years ago, a year ago, to sue the FCC.
Yeah. Which is how we got in this mess in the first place.
So the other interesting tidbit that I only saw today, but this may have been out there, the only mobile carrier whose CEO has stood behind net neutrality is Sprint.
Interesting.
He's come out and said that no, this is the way that we need to do it, and remember, he's relatively new. He was hired 6 months ago.
Yeah, not that long ago.
And is just doing crazy stuff, and so
nothing like the Timo CEO.
Not like what's his name, John Legere.
Yeah.
Legere.
Yeah.
He is insane, man.
Yep.
That guy.
That guy.
He is.
That guy.
That
guy is about to get a good portion of your money.
He is going to get a good portion of my money. So, with our next story, the Samsung Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge finally have price and pre-order dates.
Woo-hoo.
Which is something that I kid you not, I have literally checked every day, every morning. My process has been get into work, go get my coffee. I don't make Cheerios, unlike Trey. Go get my coffee
on my way to work.
And then I sit down at my desk and I type Samsung Galaxy S6 pricing.
Now let's be clear. You and I are both actually hyped about a Samsung product.
Yes, I know. And so I owned an S3 and it didn't suck. So
yes, it did.
It didn't suck until after I got my update.
We were at CES.
Oh
I
no!
Just have these.
Its battery life sucked.
Vivid memories of no, you can't because your phone's dead.
that did happen.
Yeah, no, it did.
So starting back to the actual story. So starting tomorrow, March 27th, both variants of the S6 will be available for pre-order from all major U.S. carriers and Best Buy, Amazon, the Walmart probably. The phones, as previously announced, will be released on April 10th. Along with
same day as the Apple Watch previews start,
and also when the HTC One will be announced or will be released because they're idiots.
Jeez, we're going to be doing a lot of tech news that day.
That's going to be a good day.
We're going to. We need to get into Zone 4.
The HTC will be also available for pre-order and previewing on Friday. So the other thing is that in stores they will also have the phones for you to go touch and play with and whatever, including at the Best Buy Samsung Experience stores.
Oh, I hate those.
Yes, but in this case they may come in handy.
Yep.
So what's the price?
I have to stop hating the Samsung because I actually like this product.
This product doesn't suck.
No, it doesn't. I think it's the phone to get right now.
Okay, so what's the price, you might ask? So there's a great, I'm going to drop it in the show notes. There's a great link from CNET where they've just kind of summarized everyone's price for every single phone, everyone that's kind of announced what they're doing it for. But the easiest way to do this is just to start with the AT&T traditional on contract, the one that everyone's familiar with, where the phone and Verizon has confirmed that theirs will also be the same as this. 32 gigabyte variant of the S6 and the S6 Edge. The S6 will cost $200 on contract with the 2-year agreement, and the Edge will cost $300 on contract.
So that's like an iPhone.
Yeah, that's for both AT&T and for Verizon. Now, when you start talking about T-Mobile and Sprint, things get crazy. Also, the AT&T Next plan, that thing is insane. I don't think that no one do that plan. It's a ripoff. So first off, it's a 30-month contract.
30 month?
It's 30 months.
The AT&T Next plan that we have is only 24.
Okay, so there's three different. So there's an AT&T Next 24, which is actually 30 months. Where, don't ask me. Where the 32 gig will be $22.84. If you move it up to the 24 months, it'll be $28.55. By comparison, T-Mobile's 24-month installment plan will be $28.33. So you save 22 cents a month if you go with T-Mobile.
Yeah.
This is for the 32 gig, and then the Edge is $33.96 on AT&T for the 24 months and $32.49 for T-Mobile. Now, the way this all shakes out is that the Galaxy S6 Edge is about $100 more expensive across the board, except on T-Mobile it's $80. Or it's $100 more expensive, but then the jump to the next gigabyte is $100 more expensive on everyone except for T-Mobile. It's $80 from 32 to 64 on T-Mobile. because they're crazy people. So it comes out to $680 unlocked for an S6 and $780 unlocked for an S6 Edge on T-Mobile. They'll only be available in black and brilliant, or what is it? Brilliant white, and I don't remember what the black color is, but black, white and black from the carriers. Pre-order tomorrow. In addition, they'll be offering a $50 off on a Samsung Bluetooth headset with the purchase of an S6. And T-Mobile is throwing in 1 year of Netflix if you order by, I believe it was May 12th.
Fantastic.
So today we're also gifted with the first impressions of all the reviewers because everyone got their review phones, I think, yesterday and went, oh, crap, they're starting to announce stuff. We need to just throw something on the internet. With varying success. CNET, Jessica Dolcourt is the one doing their review, and just said straight off, like, look, this is an in-progress review. We have not done our full camera tests, our battery tests. We're not even going to say anything about the battery life. We're just not even going to go there. Check back when we're actually done with the review. But everyone kind of seems positive on it, like we would expect, and that it is the flagship Android phone, period. And that many agree that the design is better than HTC's One, which is pretty impressive considering that phone is amazing from a design perspective. And that the S6 Edge does edge out the S6.
I see what you did there. Very clever.
On design and slightly on features, but probably not enough to justify its additional $100 cost.
Still, I look at that and go, sometimes it's the unquantifiable thing.
See, so my question is, which one should I get? But for me, I think that I have to go with the Edge because you're never going to have that problem. Someone looking at your phone and going, oh, is that an LG? Is that a... No. There's only one phone that's going to have the silly curved screen. It's going to be distinctive. It's going to be the only one out there that looks like that. And in this world where all of the phones are just these flat slabs,
it's something different.
In
a meaningful design-wise, features-wise, whatever.
Design-wise, it's meaningfully different.
It's meaningful.
And they've also added slight little features. So, like, for example, a lot of people do this, myself included. When you're at a meal or a meeting or something, you take your phone and you put it face down on the table. Now, the reason why you do that is because you don't want to see it when someone starts calling you or whatever pop up on the screen. Well, with the Edge, lights up the screen with the colors of your 5 most used contacts.
Yep.
Only 5 people call me. So luckily, I'm good.
So can mine be green? Because to me, sometimes it needs to be green.
Yes, yours, of course, would have to be green.
Yes.
As I would just get confused if it was not green.
Right, because sometimes it just needs to be green.
So my biggest problem, though, is I want the green one, the emerald green S6 Edge, and it's not clear that I'm going to be able to pre-order that one.
Jimmy, this is the ultimate in first world problems.
If I'm going to be spending $800 on a phone,
I think phone pricing's dumb.
I want the one I want.
Yeah, I think phone pricing's dumb, though.
So the real question, this may be an off-air conversation that we need to have, is does it even make sense for me to think about doing one of these installment plans, or should I just...
So we have...
Because it doesn't cost more to do an installment plan.
So we have one of our phones on an installment plan. And...
The Lumia, right?
No, the Lumia and the iPhone 6 Plus are on traditional plans.
That's right, because you used the upgrade for the Lumia, and then you had to do the...
I had to do the iPhone 5S.
The iPhone 5S.
I had to do a replacement iPhone 5S.
Because it was broken.
It was
the
broken.
Old one. Yes, I remember
broken.
the story.
I didn't break it. It was broken. It wasn't my phone. So I don't mind it. It works out to basically you're paying the same as a on-contract phone, as long as you can make sure that they will unlock it for you when that time period is done, then I'm fine with it. And they all theoretically do that, but just make sure that that's...
They've all said that they will do that. Well, and my other thing is, mainly just because this is the way I am, if I can pay it off in 3 months, so instead of having $800 hit this month, if I can push it so that I spread that $800 over 3 months, I'd rather do that.
Is it will it let you like a car or
I have
student loans? Actually,
no idea.
Because I don't think it
I
functions
don't
like a
think
normal
you can
loan.
do that.
I don't think it's set up.
No, I think T-Mobile's does. I think T-Mobile's is at any point you can come in and pay off the difference.
As long as if that's the structure, then yeah, go that direction. But I don't think you can get the phone you want in that doing an installment plan, anyways.
Right. So I don't.
This may be totally moot.
My strategy is to go to Best Buy tomorrow and see what I can get from them.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
But I'll be getting either the topaz blue S6 or the emerald green S6 Edge, whichever one I can get first is most likely the one I'm going to get. And once that happens, we'll report back with our impressions.
I am oddly positive about the Galaxy S6 line.
And the camera is right there with the iPhone 6 camera. The only notes are iPhone is better at white balance.
Sure.
And does slightly better at they handle exposure differently. So in certain situations, the Samsung is better at exposure, and in other situations, the iPhone is better at exposure. And the iPhone, if I remember correctly, does not have as higher resolution sensor.
Right, it does.
And so in some of the detailing, you can pick up a little more detail in Samsung's pictures. But it's one of those, you look at the pictures independently and you go, okay, they're not the same, but I don't know which one's better.
Right, they're just different.
Right.
In other things that are different, there's a new biography of Steve Jobs.
The Isaacson, right?
Hold on. That came out of the world this week. Becoming Steve Jobs, How a Reckless Upstart Became a Visionary Leader came out Tuesday. It was written by Brent Schlender and Rick Tizelli. Both are experienced tech journalists. Schlender had a 25-year-long source relationship with Jobs himself and has reported on tech for the WSJ and for Fortune. Tizelli is the editor-in-chief of Fast Company. So these are like tech people. While this is technically an unauthorized biography, Apple's leadership, including the iBooks like Twitter account, are going out of their way to praise this book over and against Isaacson's authorized biography from 2011. 4 key members of Apple's leadership, including Cook and Johnny Ive, gave interviews for this book after initially refusing. And they all seem to praise this for being a more accurate description of the man they knew. Partly, this is because the book goes out of its way to take a more positive view of Jobs, particularly his second coming in Apple. As the title itself suggests, the book shows that he became a more mature person and a better leader than the Isaacson, Isaacson's biography left him in this kind of still mercurial character. And this biography goes, no, that's not the true description of the later Jobs. I haven't finished this book. I'm only a little bit into it. It only dropped on Tuesday, and I've been working. But enough to kind of be able to echo the sentiments in the Apple statements. This is a different take. And they, in their introduction, they kind of say, look, this is going to be a different take than Isaacson. And it's rare that the authorized biography is more negative than the unauthorized biography. Usually those are the total opposite. So given the battle of the bios, what do you think is Apple's motive for shifting the representation of Jobs?
I think that they don't want Jobs to be seen as this intangible, visionary that will never have another Jobs. And because in a lot of ways, that is the conversation that whenever you talk about Steve Jobs and Apple, you talk about look at all of the stuff he did with the company that Bill Gates could have purchased just to crush it.
But they were making too much money off of software sold.
Yeah, they're making too much money off selling software to, Apple, that they were like, oh, whatever, we don't care. And I still don't think that was really an option. But
again, when they were with the power to do it, they were also dealing with the antitrust stuff.
Yeah, no, they couldn't do it.
So,
they didn't really have the power to do it.
When they had the financial resources, sure, 1995, right? But that was,
Yeah, that was the height of the antitrust stuff. But so anyways, I think that it really is towards moving towards this. Yes, Jobs was an amazing leader for Apple, that did amazing things while he was here, but he's not as aloof and like. And I'm going to steal this idea from our conversation before the show, but as mysterious as Jobs himself would want him to come off as.
I wonder how much the timing of this is meaningful, right? Apple is about to launch its first post-Jobs new product.
Mm-hmm.
For new product, I get that they've upgraded products. Thank you very much, right? This is the first post-Steve iPhone, too. Like, I get it. The iPhone 5 is the last thing he had meaningful input into. I mean, I understand. Thank you. But they haven't released a new product category since the iPad. And so they haven't released a new product category since Jobs passed away. And so I wonder how much of this is that setup of, look, Steve formed a company that lives on, and that I think is something that Tim Cook tries to do in the book.
As a founder, he's a founder of a company,
and in coming back, he set up this company that doesn't need him. That it isn't that so that they're trying to make him seem in some ways nicer, like a better leader, and I think you're right. In some ways, less of a god and more of a businessman. And so in moving him that way, they're saying, what we put out now can be just as good and just as innovative and just as design focused and all of this as we were under Steve. Because there's a legacy there that we can live into.
I think it's also important to look at, Microsoft post Gates and how.
But Microsoft isn't post Gates. I think part of its problem is that Microsoft has never been post Gates.
Well, it's post Gates in the sense that he still has power.
He's assigned by the board to be the special confidant of Satya Nadella. Now, whether that's true or not, don't worry about that. Just understand that the idea of Gates still being around seems very key to Microsoft's identity.
Yes, but I would say that if Gates were to pass away tomorrow, it would not nearly have the effect on Microsoft that Jobs passing away had on Apple.
No, but I think Gates leaving the CEO role at Microsoft nearly killed it. Because him and Ballmer, and they've kind of confessed to this now in the post-Ballmer era, that him and Ballmer fought. And that's what sunk Longhorn and what made Vista so bad. Because Gates and Ballmer were not getting along in terms of vision for the company. I think what we're seeing in the modern Microsoft is a move back towards a unified system where no one's fighting.
Back towards the engineering and
mobile first, cloud first world where they're providing productivity software across all platforms. Right. But Gates was always, and I think this is actually relevant because they sold a whole bunch of software to Apple, right? Ballmer in some ways tried to make it Apple. He bought a hardware, he launched 3 hardware projects, really. Xbox, Surface.
Oh, yeah.
Nokia. Right? He tried to build verticals. And that's not what Microsoft does on the consumer market. Or even enterprise, right? You can run Linux on Azure. Always have been. Actually, I think you could run Linux first. It's weird. But you can run Linux
I think
on Azure.
Azure was a Unix-based infrastructure.
It's weird that they called it Windows. Anyways, doesn't matter. Microsoft had always been about cross-platform. And now everyone's like, oh, look, it's Microsoft apps on iPad. It's like, well, under Gates, that would have been a no-brainer. He would have, just like you looked at the Apple II and went, okay. And then he looked at the Mac and went, okay.
we can sell spreadsheet software on this.
We'll sell you Excel. That's fine. We get to keep the money for Excel, right? Right? Okay, whatever. Here, competitor, have our software that we also make money on. Now, that's a little dodgy for Microsoft now, because do they actually make money on their software?
It's not clear.
It's not clear. It's not clear. How Microsoft... At some point, Microsoft, like Sony, you're going to look at them going, and how do you make money again? And if the answer is insurance, we know we're in trouble.
No, it's Azure. We know the answer. The answer is always Azure.
The answer is always Azure. And every discussion always comes back to Azure. But I think
Hey, there's Azure news this week. Did you hear about this?
No.
Apps. You can now
Yes.
run apps directly on Azure.
So like EC2.
I'm just saying.
Amazon. So it's just like AWS. It's a good feature. It's not a meaningful innovation.
I'm just saying they added it.
I I think for Microsoft now, you're right that for Gates to pass, well, I mean, we're not asking him to. He's doing a heck of a good thing right now. He's got a good thing going. It wouldn't be as catastrophic. They wouldn't be searching for an identity, and I don't think Apple did either. I think we have been searching for an identity for Apple.
Well, I think that this is Apple saying we know what our identity is.
Right. We didn't have this isn't really a post Jobs Apple. This is the Apple that Jobs built, and Jobs built it so that it could live on. And it is living on. I mean, the company's a lot more valuable than it was when he was alive. Right? Tim Cook, you can tell he's a great manager, but he's not a visionary. Screw that, I don't really care. They have Johnny Ive. And he's gone visionary too far.
One port.
Right, he's gone visionary too far. So I don't think they're lacking for vision. And they've leapt in, they've been willing to make compromises that I don't think Steve would have made. Larger screen iPhones. And they're selling more iPhones than ever. Right?
Yeah.
So sometimes non-Jobsian thinking is a wonderful thing because it gave you the iPhone 6 Plus and potentially gave you the iPad Mini.
No, probably gave you the iPad Mini.
Probably gave you the iPad Mini. Now, Jobsian thinking is what gives you the Apple Watch that costs $1,000. And this is
$17,000. That's Jobsian thinking.
That is Jobsian thinking. How much was the Apple Lisa? $10,000. The Apple Lisa was $10,000. Remember that. And that was in the 80s when $10,000 was a lot more money.
Yeah.
The Apple Lisa was very expensive. And that lives on in the Apple Lisa lives on in the Trash Can Pro. It absolutely the idea of the Lisa is the same idea as the Trash Can Pro.
Which you want.
Which I want desperately. Something I don't want is some laws that I cannot abide. In this week's Last Call. So, Jimmy, you don't have a reputation for getting speeding tickets, so you take this story.
Not nearly as much as you.
Oh, no.
So, Ford has launched a car that will prevent speeding tickets. Now, unfortunately, it prevents it in the way that is the easiest way to prevent it. It prevents you from speeding.
When you see the lights, floor it?
Not a good strategy. So,
Might prevent speeding tickets.
So, Ford, using a system called Intelligent Speed Limiter, can read speed limit signs as so you press a button on the steering wheel. It activates Intelligent Speed Limiter. You set what its highest speed it can go is. So, if you're a little old lady and you only want to go 60 on the highway, you set 60 miles an hour.
History's greatest monster.
Then, yes, and you drive in the left lane because I hate you. And so, but then when you go through the small Texas town where the speed limit drops to 35, it'll read the speed limit sign and using some kind of, it wasn't really specific about exactly how it was doing it. Basically, it throttles back on the fuel delivery to the engine to slow you down. Using that in a combination of gearing. Basically, the engine brakes is kind of my understanding. It doesn't actually brake.
It doesn't apply the brakes.
It doesn't apply the brakes
an engine brake
to slow you down to meet that speed. So it'll be available in Ford's S-Max vehicle in the UK, which I believe is the C-Max equivalent.
No, I think the C-Max is the C-Max equivalent.
The S-Max must be a new product line. It looks like it's a bigger C-Max.
I think it's a bigger C-Max because the C-Max is like a direct European import.
But it looks like a European car. It's not one that I'm familiar with. That's coming to the United States
at
this
van that's based on the Fusion platform because the C-Max is based on the Focus platform.
Yes, it's that. Yes, it is.
So it shares a base with the Fusion and the Mustang, and
Yeah. So I mean, so this is one of the things
it's
it
basically a
has.
Mustang.
Just tell yourself that. So this is one of the things that it has, along with like a pedestrian detection system that does like exactly what you expect it to do. It slows you down so you don't kill pedestrians.
If that's what you're going for.
So my question is, does this take all of the fun out of driving, or
So
what?
here's the secret: speeding itself is not all that fun. What's fun is pushing a car to its limits. With some cars, you'll never be able to do that. It's why owning a supercar isn't actually all that fun. I don't know.
You need a test track.
Because you need a track in order to do anything with it. Yes, you can go from 0 to 60 in 4.3, and that might be useful entering a highway, but there's only so fast you can go on a highway. Even if you're going to speed, there's only so much you can speed before you're just taking a lot of risks with life and property and the law.
But you can outrun any cop you run into.
Yes and no. They have helicopters.
And then you run out of gas. Like,
and then you run out of gas.
You can outrun the helicopter for 8 minutes.
For 8 minutes.
In a Veyron.
Right. Again, and then
Make
you're
that
going to
8
end up
minutes
putting
count.
into Galveston Bay. There's a video of this.
Insurance fraud.
So what's actually probably more fun is a car with limited resources that handles well.
Subaru BRZ, for example.
Yeah, the BRZ, the Mini Cooper, the Focus ST, the small...
The Fiesta ST now.
The Fiesta ST, the Focus RS. The Focus RS actually is just too much power. I want it. Or even like the Fiat 500, the Fiat 500 Abarth. Get something like that. You can push to like 100% without ever breaking the law. And what's more fun in those kind of cars is A, they're more affordable, B, you're less likely to truly annihilate the speed limit, and C, you don't slow down as much when you go around corners. That's fun, right? So I think this doesn't actually take the joy out of driving. Also,
it's a button. So I think that this is getting back to, like, it's not required. But it's not designed for the U.S. market. It's designed for a market where there are speed cameras that just send you tickets for speeding.
Right.
Which in a large way do not exist in the United States in the way they do in the UK.
The reality is that the U.S. doesn't take speeding all that seriously.
Because we have a lot more space.
Other countries, Australia takes it a lot more seriously, and they have as much space as, and might have more empty space than we do. And we just don't take it that seriously. It's a slap on the wrist. You know, I have a lot of speeding tickets, and I still have a driving license.
Mainly because I feel like some of that is just, it's the American way, that, it's the open road. And
well, it's certainly the Texas way, which is where most of my speeding tickets are. So I was an irresponsible youth who had to drive a lot. Yeah.
You just wish that the Hardy didn't have a speed limit at that time. I've heard stories about that.
That was fun.
When the Hardy
Why didn't
did
you
not
slow
have
down? I didn't have the heart to tell him I did. And on that bombshell, it's time to end. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's Text Last Call that actually occurred this week. If you have any feedback for us, podcast.
You're welcome. We're caught up.
Your podcast at textlastcall.com, pinterest.com/textlastcall, facebook.com/textlastcall, or at textlastcalls on the Twitters. However you find us, we'll be seeing you on the interwebs. Finally, a show that wasn't like 80 minutes long.
Wasn't much news this week.
Also, I don't care about the Facebook page.
I didn't have much to say about it. I mean,
Look, it's a thing.
Hey, Facebook announced some stuff.
The New York Times bit's the only actual interesting piece of news.
I don't know how they're going to monetize it, though.
Well, I don't know how they're going to monetize it adequately.
What's
I know how they're going to monetize it. That's not the issue. It's how much.